Well, good. Well,
But
you've got to lead by example. You have to show, if you're
yeah,
going to do this for all these other student athletes that want to get sponsors and want to build a brand and want to, if you're going to sell a package, for example, if you're going to resell our thing and then all the other things that you do for coaching, you have to be the living example of that first.
hello. How are you today, Dennis?
There you are. How you doing, Sabrina?
I'm doing wonderful today. Excited to chat more with you because it's been a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
How's your weekend been?
Crazy, but all good.
I like the setup that you have back here. Is that in your house?
Yeah, we've got a podcast studio in the house.
Very nice. We want to move forward with working with you guys. So this is more of, okay, what does that look like and next steps for that?
Did you get a chance to look at the URL that shows what we do for personal branding?
Yes, I do. And I started reading your book. I'm halfway through. I went through your website.
Okay.
And I do have some questions about the VA because I saw that there's different jobs for that. So I was curious, like, how we could apply that to more the content side of things. And the other thing is I rewatched our Zoom from the last meeting probably a couple times and started to dissect more of the things that you're saying for actionable steps. And so over the course of this next week, I have about 8 Zoom calls scheduled with some NIL industry professionals for the book.
Good. Okay. Those are all good things.
Yes. So can you tell me like more about the scope of a VA? Because I know we want to bring in part of it's like personal brand building and more on the content side of it. So we want people to actually make the content. And I'm just curious, would the VAs be making the content, editing it, or would they be more of managers for it?
Have you seen the Content Factory? The training?
The Content Factory?
And the different stages in the Content Factory. Let me share my screen. All this stuff with VAs, especially, you have to be super careful on what they can do and what they don't do. And we have this group here, which you should join, called Digital Marketing with Dennis Yu.
Gotcha.
And these are mainly VAs, but you can see there's a lot of people here. But the main thing we want people to do, VAs, is if you are interviewing these NIL experts or clients or anybody, and there's raw video off of Zoom or on your cell phone or whatnot, then the VAs can process, post, and promote. So there's training on how to use these different tools to be able to take that video, turn it into an article, turn it into other kinds of derivative content, not write content, not ghostwrite, not interview other people, not do client-facing sorts of things, but process it, post it in different ways. Sometimes you can skip process to go straight to post, and then from here be able to promote, which is basically run $1 a day against it. And the main thing of the many things that you can do is turn it into an article. And this is the best thing to be able to rank on Google and enhance the website, get the knowledge panel, turn it into a book, all of that kind of stuff, right? So you'll see in this group that there are a lot of VAs that are, well, this guy's trying to come in but can't get in. I'm posting stories because I have to practice what we preach.
Right.
Other people here, they're trying to find stuff. Other people, you can see, right? Some of these people are making their videos, introducing themselves. This is a 300-page document that it's pretty intimidating. There's a lot of stuff. We don't expect VAs to be able to do everything in here, but as they advance and become more sophisticated, they'll be able to do more and more of the things that are in here. And we've published this who knows how many times, right? Every conference we give it away. It's not a secret. All the stuff we have on the Content Factory in terms of the training that we do podcasts, I'm constantly talking about the process to execute this Content Factory and about how everybody needs a team of VAs. Could be one VA, could be multiple VAs, depending on how much stuff they have. So you doing for high ticket clients, you'd want to have multiple VAs.
Right. How many people can one VA handle?
Oh, you could ask the same question for any kind of agency or any kind of setup, right? Obviously, the answer is it depends, but generally,
if they were to handle all their social media.
So there is an overlap where they can be quote unquote social media managers, but a lot of people will try to extend the scope into things that are, I think, beyond what, not even what VAs, but what anyone should do. Because the biggest thing we want to do is be able to repurpose real content that has EEAT in it. But generally for like what you're doing, if you don't overload them, if you train the VAs up the right way, if you're patient with onboarding them, if you find quality people, A VA should be able to do 5 or 6 clients. In the world of local agencies, maybe 20. In the world of like a power figurehead, you might have multiple VAs just on one person.
And this is them posting the content across all social media platforms for the.
Yep.
Does that include the strategy for it? So in terms of you're building an app.
You have to do. So strategy is goals, content, and targeting.
This is like the video's already made and then they just post it.
Yeah. They're not there to get on a call and talk about what's the right angle and figure consulting. We don't believe anyone, VA or not, should be doing strategy unless it's something explicitly being offered. With me, you're getting strategy right now. The call we had last time, that's strategy. I don't think many people can offer that because you have to be at a certain level and have a certain amount of experience to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so for the athletes that don't have a following,
yeah.
How do you still push out the content for them when that content's not there when we're starting off with the client?
What do you think?
Well, we build up their social media, but I know like you want to post the articles and so.
It has nothing to do with followers. The key is they have to have content, right? If we go back to it's even the cover photo here. This is Affiliate World. That was the keynote here. If you can produce the content, you have to separate out these 4 steps. Don't mix them together. Probably the most common issue I see with influencers or young adults or whatever, which also is right smack in the middle of athletes for NIL, is thinking that your content is your social media presence. Because what that does is you see, Sabrina, it mixes stages 1 and 3. And I think you said something like, well, if they don't have a following, that's not, following is stage 4. If you have good content and people like it and it's promoted and there's engagement, then you start to build a following. But what we want, if I were you, I would make sure that for these athletes that there's a story about them. How did you get into lacrosse? Or what was it the stories that you from your childhood that taught you values? And what did you learn from your first coach? And what was it like winning the high school championship for whatever, right? And what other things are you studying? And who are the other folks that you admire? And what's the most, like all these podcasts kind of like questions, they've got to be able to answer these questions and then mix in their stories. I've even done that. You could look at me and I ran cross country for SMU and there's even posts that have been repurposed, right? This was probably just a simple video that I made. I'm sure it was like part of a podcast. It was part of somewhere there was a video where I was interviewed. And then this got turned into an article, right? And then turned into different social medias. And then, for example, I was on a podcast, Escape Your Limits. And this thing was 1:46. And this was a professional sort of thing.
I shut that thing down and the whole ecosystem collapsed a couple months later.
This is a great video. This you can see, right? There's all kinds of stuff in here, right?
Right.
But this could have just as easily been a Zoom call. And then all the stories that are in here, there's lots of stories. These get turned into all kinds of derivative content because it starts with the initial stories. We believe ideally should be told in video. It can be long form video. It can be you, Sabrina, probably interviewing them. That's probably the best thing. If you're in person with them in Belmont, set up a little room like this, which is not hard to do. Or if they're not at Belmont, then do it via Zoom and they can learn how to do this on Zoom. Certainly you can show them how initially by doing the first couple, and then they can start to build their brand and not be completely dependent upon you. You see the model where you train the trainer? If you have to provide all these services to them, and that's totally fine with high ticket, that you can start out doing that, but you can't be there every single moment of their life for everything that they're doing. You have to also equip them when that moment happens to be able to pull out their phone and collect these pieces. Then it can be processed into many pieces that can be posted across different social medias. And in some cases, boosted on TikTok and LinkedIn, YouTube, right? Amazon, right? For you, we'll get a book out. We want an Amazon $1 a day it, right? But you see how these 4 stages are distinct. And most people, this is such a common thing. The most difficult thing in what we're doing is untraining these hidden assumptions about content is made specifically for just a channel. Like I'm making content just for YouTube. I'm making content just for LinkedIn. I'm making content just for whatever. And decoupling the idea that having a following is somehow related to your content or you see how these are separate stages. If you don't separate these stages out, you're just going to be mixing chocolate milk and Pepsi and all these. It's going to not work. Okay. And then
Gotcha.
you'll try to have a VA or me or other people try to do every one of these roles at the same time. Like you have to, for efficiency, you just logically have to separate out the production of the content. It can live anywhere. The content just needs to exist somehow. It needs to be produced somehow. That is independent of whoever's working on it with whatever tools and wherever it happens to live. And it can be processed and posted even later. There's stuff that I've done 10 plus years ago that is now being repurposed into different kinds of content on networks that didn't exist 10 years ago, but are working for me today, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you enhance existing stories. Maybe they talk about how they work out in the gym. And there were some raw videos they made a few years ago, let's just say, when they were getting started, when they were a child, and here's their Olympic dreams, or here, whatever it is. And now there's some updates to that, to how they work out, to their nutrition and whatnot. And you can combine those particular things together, right? I could use this, for example, was just a few days ago. And my buddy here has 40 million subs on YouTube. And
awesome.
If you take pictures of me, and it doesn't have to be with famous people or anything like that. It just happens to be, I know some of these people. And here's a video of him throwing me a lob. You can see, right? Slam dunk, right? Well, I can go back to videos of me playing basketball, doing the dunk thing. Or here's one of my friends that is a pro dunker. And his dream to be quitting school and all that kind of stuff is to be a professional dunker. And we went to Nike's headquarters just a month ago. And Nike reserved the Bo Jackson gym, which is where they shot all the iconic Jordan commercials and things like that for us. And here he is doing a bunch of dunks, right?
Very cool.
Combine this story together. And we can take stories of me playing basketball. It could be like, what's this one here? Here's another one, right? Well, it doesn't have a picture of me dunking, but there's all kinds of
athleticism still stays.
I mean, like this is like you got to get it pretty high to dunk the ball, right?
Right.
But I can combine stories from a long time ago. I could talk about Yao Ming and this is Fat Dennis, right? You can see I've lost 50 pounds since then.
Congrats.
But you see
awesome.
How if they're getting this stuff on their phones, look, we had the Warriors as a client. They paid us a lot of money for a few years, and headquarters. Here's the Golden State Warriors, the headquarters, and here's another friend of mine, basketball player, right? Working on the ads, working on the analytics and whatnot. And so you see how all of these things can be topically organized, and the AI does this, but you still need a smart VA. You still need to have that initial raw content so it can be repurposed and used in different ways, right?
Gotcha. Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for explaining more about that.
Yeah.
For now, I'm thinking in terms of next steps, because for us, we're still in our investment phase. We're trying to get some funding first. That way we could pair up with this. That's definitely, to be honest, like one of our, I don't want to call it obstacles, but one of the things we're working on right now. That way we could start incorporating you guys with us.
Yep.
That's something that we're working on our end. I know I have a couple investors I'll be talking to later this week.
Yeah.
Right.
And raising money and all that, that's great. But you don't want to let that stop you from making sure that you're the living example. Otherwise, you're just pushing an idea, right? It might be a great idea. And it doesn't take, I guess it depends on what you're raising money for, but I don't think executing.
Well, to bring in the content team or to pay for this.
But this is small. This is not like raising money to start a business and hire a whole team of people, right?
So for our goal right now of this year, we want to bring on 10 clients.
Okay.
With the scope of how you said one VA could handle 5 to 6 clients, that would be potentially around 2 VAs.
But you don't have to start with everything, and you want to bootstrap. Start with one VA. You need to do some of the work yourself initially just to understand what they're doing, right? And I think it's very hard to manage other people if you don't have an understanding of that, right?
Right, which is currently what I'm doing for our first client. I'm already managing all that. But then you guys do it in a different system. So it'd be interesting to apply that to our client.
I bet you a lot of the techniques that you're using are similar to what we use. And you don't have to use everything and every tool and every technique that we use. Because some people, they'll look at our Content Factory training or look at digital plumbing or look, and there's a lot of detail there. You don't have to get smarter, you don't have to read every book in the library, right? You can just read one book. Start with one book, right? So we have a lot of depth on how to publish a book, for example. We've done that for a lot of people. But just because we've done it for some high profile people and they have a lot of content and it's professionally shot and there's all the stage speaking and whatnot. Doesn't mean you have to have all those things from day one, right? Like, you want to run a marathon, can you just walk a mile today? You know what I'm saying? Right? You don't have to, like, everything you need to run a marathon, yes. To compete, yes, there's all these things. But if you want to grow to these 10 clients in this first year, you don't have to have the full infrastructure for all 10 from day one. Because
I agree with you. I'm more seeing it from the point of, what does it look like once we onboard a client and how do we start helping them right away?
You should have a checklist on what exactly happens. I think we talked about what some of those things are, but you've got to publish it. And while you were very clear in what that process looks like, I think it's more powerful when you show your examples, right? And they can see your story. And that actually is key to your marketing. Even though you can maybe talk to the president of Belmont and all these other people like your dad talked about, I really think working on your personal brand as an example and documenting that is the key, not only to your marketing to get more students in, but also clear for execution. So people understand this is exactly how it's done because you set the example first, right? Because there some of these parents, I'm sure, that are paying for this, they're gonna want everything for their kid, right? And you've got to be clear on what is included and what is not included. Otherwise, it'll just be a free for all, and you'll lose money. And then you'll need 5 VAs just to handle one person, and that won't work, right?
Right. Gotcha. Well, thank you for sharing some other insight. I think for next steps, I know we're coming up on time, is I'll go over this with Egbert. And if you could send the recording so you could watch over as well, that would be much appreciated. And then we'll come back with other steps. Is there anything that you're expecting from me that I could share or for a next call?
Well, if we're saying, I mean, it's up to you. Egbert, send me a note saying you're the decision maker. If you want to do it, then the next step is let's go through all the assets we need, all the necessary ingredients, so we can first execute for you.
Gotcha. What exactly does that look like? Like me sending you our checklist of what it's like so far and editing that, or?
Everything to do with your brand, everything to do with what your package is, making sure that you have a proper website for you and for the agency, making sure all these videos and whatnot are there, going through the list of people that you're going to interview, like all the stuff necessary to execute, right? Think about what those items are.
Okay. And then you're asking for just to send it over, or
if you want to do this,
or how do we make?
Yeah, if you want to do it and we get started, we're going to go through onboarding. We set up Basecamp. We're going to make sure we have access to the assets. The ones you don't have, we're going to claim. There's going to be a lot of coordination to make sure everything's done right there. And you should do something like that for your clients, right? If you don't have access to the stuff, you're a chef, you're cooking, you don't have the ingredients, well, you're limited, right?
Right. To make sure I'm understanding right. Next step would be go through the onboarding process.
Yeah, provided you guys say yes, you're the decision maker, then we would get everything set up and have a kickoff call and all that.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for your time today.